You know, what I expect to see from our team is it's difficult to answer because we've got 33 new faces that just showed up here in June. So of the 85 scholarship guys, 55 of them are new, and 33 of them showed up in June. And so a lot of this camp has been about getting to know our players. It's been about trying to get them to know each other. And camp went very well. We got out healthy, and I think we have a much better relationship right now with each other than we did when some of the new guys came in. So, that's a locker room relationship. That's how we get to know each other on the field, and it's the relationship that we have between players and coaches. And all that in this new world of college football is very different. And I've said this many times this year. College football, particularly at this level, has become, what can you assemble this year, and then can you go win with it? And so I feel like from a relationship standpoint, camp was very successful. It was a physical camp. This team grinded together, and I think we bonded together. And I think I've been very, very happy with the efforts of our staff. And so we are now 4 days out here from traveling over to Kentucky to play a conference opponent in the season opener. And I would say that my sentiments mirror that of the staff, and that we feel like we're very close to being ready. We want the next 3 or 4 days, and then we get to go hit somebody else for a change.
All right, we will go ahead and jump into questions. Those of you who just joined us, we'll use the hand raise function if you've got a question for Coach Longo, and we will get it started with Connor Deal.
Hey, Coach, you talk about the physicality in practice. Just kind of what does it mean to see that out of guys, especially since you brought a lot of the guys that came after spring ball.
We've got all kinds of players on this team, and some of them practice in the spring. We have some that didn't even practice in the spring, right? So it was I think, a tall order because everybody was on different levels, and it took the summer training to get everybody in a position to be able to go compete athletically where we're durable, and we're strong enough to play some physical football. And we are from an endurance standpoint, we're able to take the rigors of practice and the rigors of the game. So that was all directed by Blair Vaughn, who did a fantastic job prepping our team for the summer. And we did, though. We early on, we're hungry to be out there and get going. I think the guys were hungry to get to know each other and start trusting each other with regards to what we got to do on the football field. And defense got off to a good start early on. They were very physical, and I think the offense responded. And for me, being a head coach now, it's been 19 years since I've been a head coach, and I've lived in the offensive world where I'm constantly looking at the player development of that side of the ball, the development of the offensive system on that side of the ball. But now it's much different. I care just as much about our special teams and obviously the defense as I do the offensive side of the football. And so you get a really physical play and inside that gains 8 yards, and you're happy for the execution of the offensive line. And then, within a second or two, I'm reminded, well, that means somebody didn't do something well on defense, right? So it's a give and take. I like to see the practices competitive, and I like to see players getting each other better. Our defensive ends, our edges really worked hard and competed, and it made our offensive tackles better, and vice versa. Same with corners and wideouts and all that. So you've got iron sharpening iron. As much as that is a cliche, it's very true in this sport. And I felt like because of the physicality and the competitiveness in camp, we got a lot of that process was going on in a lot of the rooms.
Let's go to Colton.
It's obviously the week 0 game. Just how much different is it actually now that training camp is wrapped up to move everything up a week and get ready to play a week before everybody else?
Well, camp has a specific mindset to it, and I just kind of alluded to that. But when you close camp, the focus turns to that first opponent. the first opposite color jersey we're actually going to see this year that we get to hit and run with and compete with. And really the focus, you're going to minimize the focus because during camp you are installing and executing the entire offensive system. You're installing all of your special teams. You're installing the entire package on defense, and you're trying to get to a certain level of efficiency in each of those areas, particularly situational football. Once we narrow this thing down to a week focus, maybe a week and a half focus on Western Kentucky or whoever the next opponent is at that particular time, it is all about specifically what you're going to do for that game, and you're trying to hone that stuff, and you're trying to make sure that it all obviously applies to your opponent. So right now we don't know a lot about Western Kentucky, and so most of what we're doing this week is about us, what we need to do, and how we need to execute. So the focus is inward right now with regards to preparing ourselves for numerous different situations that may occur in the game. And I think without question we're going to take the field to Western Kentucky on both sides of the football and see something that we don't expect. And the key is to be composed and poised enough to be able to react to it and attack it.
All right, Bob's.
Coach, how is teaching and implementing this system changed from 2016 around the time you left Sam to today in 2025?
That is a great question. I would say it is very different, and yet the way we do it works in our favor. And so what I mean by that is when I was here the first time, we spent the time to teach and install all of the logistical things, the schematics, and then we worked on the technique. And once we got that honed in with the first group, it became cyclical. So as players come in, they're joining the troops. They're not replacing the troops. And so I've always said we always had 50, 55, 60 returning coaches as well as we did players, because all of our coaches on the field, our players on the field that know, what we're doing on both sides of the ball and on special teams are able to turn around in line at the drill and practice and teach the younger guy or the newer guy that's behind them. And so after a while, your program kind of runs itself. The players help in the player development process as much as the coaches do. That part of it now does not exist. We had 30 returning players, and this first year none of them knew the system. Even if they had, those aren't that's not the high number of troops that you normally have coming back, that can kind of share with the younger or the newer guys, hey, this is how it's done, this is the way we do it. And so, from a coaching standpoint, the job's harder. I don't say that to complain about it. That's our job. So what we're going to do is we're going to coach them every year. You install it every year. The reason I think it works in our favor is, I hired a special teams coordinator and a defensive coordinator that were aligned philosophically with the way we run the program. And with regards to install, that is, we're going to keep things really, really simple. We're going to appear multiple to the opponent, but we want to keep things simple to learn. And that's the way the system has always been. And so we've got 3 coordinators here that all, they all subscribe to that approach. And so it has been easier to install it and get it in an effort to try to get better at it, and perfect that thing before we take the field on Saturday night.
All right, Carlos.
Coach Tyson Elton in his coach's show last night had some high praise for your offense and your philosophy on that front. One quote that stood out to me was, "You do whatever your personnel does best." How much have you leaned on that through camp, and how much you'll lean on that going into this game against Western Kentucky?
Well, I'm not as bright as some of these guys, but I'm smart enough to know that, if we're not going to throw deep if we can't throw deep. We're not going to run option if we don't have someone that can run option. We're not going to expect to be dominant up front if we don't have those people. I don't know if, we're going to have the same expectations in the run game if, we don't necessarily have the backfield that you need to have a prolific run team. So you're really just helping yourself, and you're doing what's right by the team to identify who your who the strengths are and who the talent is. And the talent will always, both on offense and defense, will always dictate, what we do. And so, a perfect example is 2014 when we were here. Where I think we ran the ball for 3,800 yards and 40-something touchdowns. That was just rushing. And then in 15, we pretty much did the same thing. 16, same offense, many of the same people. We had a few changes, and we wound up throwing for 52 and breaking, the all-time college touchdown passes record with 57. And you're looking at same exact program, same staff, about 80% of the same team. But there were some key differences. We lost some running backs and some bigger O-linemen, and so it facilitated. We had a few more athletic receivers at the time. And so the emphasis in the same offense just changed. And we played to Jeremiah Briscoe's strengths and the receiver's strengths. And that really, I believe, firmly gives you the best opportunity to go win, is to use the best that you have. The final thing I would say is instinctiveness. We want to be able to play instinctively. That's huge in this program. That's always been a big part of our approach. And so I think when we keep it simple and we do things over and over and over, you get good at them. We don't want guys thinking on the field on Saturday. We want them reacting and playing instinctively, and that's what we're working to get to between now and kickoff.
Colin Neal.
Coach, you said that the QB room is going to be in a battle. Just kind of what have your thoughts been on the QB battle in training camp, and if you have picked in a starting quarterback heading into Western Kentucky?
So, Colin, I would tell you this: we've rotated through 3 quarterbacks. I like all 3 of them. Sometimes you rotate through quarterbacks because you can't find the guy. You go running back by committee, or you rotate through the receivers, or you just don't have one elite guy. That's not the issue in our quarterback room. I think there's some real talent in our quarterback room, and I alluded to iron sharpens iron earlier, and that's definitely going on in that room right now. Mabry Matoyer came in with the advantage of knowing the offense, so mentally he was ahead of the others. Landon Locke was a commit at Wisconsin. His brother played in our system there, and so he already knew a lot about the offense. So that was a little bit of an advantage for him. Hunter comes in not knowing any of it, so he was behind the other 2 mentally, not because he couldn't learn it, but because he hadn't had experience in the system. And so the advantage Hunter had is he's got real starting playing time, and he knows Sam Houston, he knows the ropes, he knows a lot of these players. And, so they each had a little bit of a different advantage heading into the room. And they have – it's been a lot of fun coaching these guys because they're all bright, they're all talented, and they're all extremely competitive. And so I've enjoyed watching them compete with each other. And so whoever we name the starter on Friday night for Saturday's game, I think we're going to feel pretty good about.
Benjamin.
Guy who is back from last year that played quite a bit. What is he meant for this defense, and what kind of role do you expect him to play at the linebacker?
So I missed the beginning because you cut out. What was the full question?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just asking one of the guys that returned from last year that played a little bit. What kind of role do you expect him to play in the defense?
So are you saying a name? I didn't hear a name.
Yes, C.J. Johnson.
Oh, gotcha. See, so he's one of the guys that kind of we have a lot of new defensive players, and he along with Antavius Fish, the 2 of them kind of got together, and he's one of those guys that knows his way around. He knows the deal. He knows how it's done here. He's added some leadership on the field. Work ethic is fantastic. Also think he did a good job of learning a new system, and he's had a fantastic camp. And I'm probably as excited to see he and some of these guys on defense play on Saturday as I am anybody. Definite asset here, and those guys, without the guys that have stepped up and shown some leadership, it would make this process much more difficult. I've seen Tims win championships without severe, serious, legitimate leadership, but when you have it, it makes things so much better and so much easier. And you want it, at least here, we want it to be a player-run team. This is their team. We're working for them. We got to get them prepared. We got to get them in a position where they can go win on Saturday. And CJ has been a huge part of that positive process.
Earlier in training camp, you said you want to play 5 wide receivers, 3 running backs, so on and so forth. You also kind of mentioned maybe even a dual quarterback system. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were with that at this point.
So really, that has become the benefits there are twofold now. It used to be a priority. We want as many people to have a stake in the result of Saturday's game as possible. And all the players care, and they're all working hard. But the more that we can get in a particular positional room to meet the standard that we want in that room to actually get on the field and contribute and play, we're trying to do that in every room. So the more depth you have, the more durable that room's going to be, the healthier you can keep people, the fresher your team is going to be when they're out there on the field. Because instead of having a starter, playing at 75%, you can roll out the next guy who's pretty dang good and may be close to that starter, but at 100%, he's probably a better football player. I always think when we were at Ole Miss and A.J. Brown was getting 80 plays a game, and he had 98 yards a game and 1 touchdown, and we dropped his reps down to 55, and we started playing Elijah Moore, and A.J.'s production went up to 128 yards a game and a touchdown and a half, and then Elijah Moore got better. That was better for our team. And so we that's our philosophy. We believe in that in every room. Some rooms are deeper than others, but we're always going to push our guys to try to get them to the standard in the room so that we can play more players. And then in this day and age, the other benefit, because I mentioned that it's twofold, is you guys that are playing and are contributing and are helping us win are happier. You're playing. And so I think it's part of the on-campus recruiting. I want to get more guys out there as long as they are prepared and ready to do it, that we can, so that you can retain as many as you need to.
Colin Neal.
Hey, Coach, it's kind of no secret that those outside of the facility are looking at the defensive line as a point of emphasis on the defense. Just kind of what can you say about the guys in the trenches and how much they've grown and improved over this training camp?
Well, I would say I'm standing out there with you guys because the point of emphasis for us all spring was to recruit some guys that we felt that could hold up and do the things we want to do in our defense, up front. So recruiting D tackles and recruiting edges was one of our top priorities from a recruiting standpoint last year. We like the numbers that we brought in. We like the players that we brought in. Damian Adams and Isaac Mooring are doing a fantastic job prepping them. They have really challenged us offensively. They've challenged our offensive line. And so there's been a good give and take and a good battle there. And I think right now we like where we are from a depth standpoint there. And there's a couple we think are going to be premier playmakers. I think there's 2 up there right now, and we're going to wait and see how that goes on Saturday. But we're excited to see that new unit, that brand new unit, go to work at Western Kentucky.
Benjamin.
Yeah, on the other side with the offensive line, Ethan Hagler had been the center for Sam Houston for multiple years. What does the evolution of that position look like since you got here trying to find a replacement for Ethan Hagler?
I've had some great character guys, overachievers, really efficient, and then I've had some just flat out great ball players at that position over the years. We've learned to do with less there, and we've learned what it's like from a benefit standpoint to have a great center. So here we've got a number of guys. We've got 3 guys that have been rolling through. I would play any one of them right now. I think they have different strengths, obviously, but we're happy with the depth at center. That's kind of the quarterback of the front line, and they're they're going to make all the calls and manage everything. And so, we've been rolling through three guys, even with our first team, just to give them all good work against the first team defense. And that's probably one of the areas up front right now that we feel real confident about.
Cool.
The defensive end, just what have you seen improvement-wise through camp with Freddie Lindsay and, them having to complete new defense going onto the field this year?
Going into this, I've got a pretty good working knowledge of the defense. That was one of the reasons we hired Freddie Lindsay. Also, he and I, this is our third time working together. And so from a character standpoint, he's top shelf. And, the best compliment I think you can ever give any individual coach is that their players play for them. I don't know if I've been around another guy. I've been around some really good ones and some guys that can get their players going. I think Freddie's as good as any that I've been around at getting his players to play for him. And it was key for us to get those edges playing well here. I mean, they set the edge, no pun intended for us. They are going to help us dictate what goes on at the line of scrimmage. I think we're athletic there. I think we're very happy with who's there and who's playing. And what we're doing, and I'm also as excited about what we're doing schematically with Coach Lindsay's defense here. So those are two big pluses defensively right now, and of course we have a lot of work to do between now and Friday. But I like that we're healthy, and I like that we got accomplished what we needed to in camp.
All right, we will wrap it up with a question from Colin Deal.
You mentioned this ever-changing landscape of college sports. I don't know if you saw it, but in Northern Illinois, head coach Thomas Hammock went on a talk about how about players and NIL, and even though you all are in season, it seems like that head coaches have to constantly worry about those sorts of things and lots of other things in this ever-changing college landscape. Just kind of what do you do as a coach to just kind of if you just block out the noise, or you just work through whatever you can?
There's no blueprint for this right now. It's still new. I've been involved with NIL, rev share, player supplementation, whatever you want to call it. It's comes from different places. It's all really the same thing at the end of the day. It's not going away. It's not going to change. So we can sit here and complain about it. We could talk about the negatives. We can talk about whether we agree or disagree with this atmosphere. But I prefer really not to waste a lot of time and effort on it. And I've told our players that. And we need to keep the main thing, and that's playing football. And you try to, while you're recruiting, find guys that love the game. I'm not ignoring that this business side of the game exists. It certainly does. And so we're going to address it, and we're attacking it. There's two things. You can complain about it and let people pass you by, or you can attack it and make it work for you. And that's what we're doing here at SAM. And so I think at the end of the day, I hear a lot about this thing becoming very transactional and not as relational as it used to be. I just choose not to do that. I think it's much harder. It takes more time and effort for this thing to still be about relationships, because the business end of things, the financial end of things, can change the mood of a meeting quickly. But we're going to continue to put the added time in that we need to have good relationships with our players, and we're going to take care of them while we're here. I had an alum ask me, how can you get to know a guy that's only going to be here a year? And I told him, I say this all the time. I know couples who got together in under a year, got married, and now they're married 42 years. So you can develop a strong, positive relationship in a year. Is it easier than 4 years? No, it's not. Does it get more difficult because there's the business piece of it? Yeah, it most certainly does. But at the end of the day, we're going to treat people like people. We're going to take care of our players. And then when it comes time, when it's the right time to talk finances, we do.
All right, we're going to go into overtime here and go one more question for Dalton Foster.
Overtime already.
Hopefully week zero doesn't go that way too. But my question is just what would it be? How important would it be to get out to a fast start against this Western Kentucky team that has kind of had Sam's number the last few years and is projected to be one of the top teams? Just what would it be like to get out to a fast start, kind of similar to what this team did at Rice last year?
So if by fast you mean tempo, I don't know. I think what we'd like to do, we want to play a composed, poised, good decision-making game. We want to secure the football. There are some things that happen maybe a little bit more so in early games like this. The pressure's on. You're in a conference game on opening day. You're playing week 0. Last time I played a football game on August 23rd was 2014 here. When we flew out and played number 1 Western or Eastern Washington. So this is a challenge. There's no question. I think we want to play smart football. We want to be alert to situational areas of the ball game. We want to secure the football. We want to play efficiently. I think those things, when you put those things together early, you get off to a fast start. Fast start to me would be a successful start. So, you're moving the ball, you're playing good defense. We're working very diligently here, and we will for the next 3-4 days to try to polish and clean. And if something's not going well right now in practice, we're going to eliminate it. We're not going to do anything we're unsure about. So when we take the field Saturday, we'll be running and executing what we're doing that we feel ultra confident about, and that we feel like we got a great shot to execute without making mistakes. And that's the best way to prepare ourselves, for the opening game of a season away, at a conference opponent.